This meeting to order at 10:02 a.m. My name is Robin Schlosser, and I'm the Executive Director for Reach Out Morongo Basin, and I am your co-chair for this committee. I would like to have a pledge of allegiance done, and if I can have Craig Bell from the Morongo Basin Ambulance lead us in the pledge.
There's a little flag back there. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, I'd like to do roll call now, please. Okay, do we have Curtis Yakima?
Yes, present, thank you.
Glenn Harris?
Yes, here, thank you.
Stone James, he is running a couple of minutes late, he will be in attendance. April Ramirez will be absent. Nikita Johnson will be absent. Janet Johnston? Here. Robert Schlosser? Here. And Daniel Ballou?
Here.
Great, thank you, everybody. So we're gonna do roundtable introductions. If we can have you introduce yourself with your name and your organization, please, that would be great. So I'm gonna start to my left with Daniel.
All right, Daniel Ballou, Rescue Residents, nonprofit here in the High Desert, working to end veteran homelessness.
Janet Johnston with Morongo Basin Conservation Association.
Faith Nicholson with Valley Star Community Services and the Yucca Valley Tay Center.
I'm sorry. Cindy Bernard, Editor-in-Chief, Desert Trumpet.
Eric Menendez, Joshua Tree Gateway Communities Alliance.
Cammy Belton, Morongo Basin Arch.
Margaret Cross, Morongo Basin Arch. Sherry Panzer, Morongo Basin Healthcare District, Outreach and Wellness Specialist, and Recovery California Surgery and Mullen County. Diana Anderson, Morongo Basin Healthcare District.
Paul Chung from Inroads, Sunburst County News Program.
Neil Brown, also San Bernardino County Community Program.
Mark Della Rosa, San Bernardino County News.
Susie Dick from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Sally Dauphinay, DBH Test, and located in Corporation.
Christina Van Buren, DBH Test, Sheriff Office.
Wayne Hamilton, Morongo Unified School District.
Craig Bell, Morongo Basin Ambulance Association.
Ray Santos, Reach Out Yucca Valley.
Morning, Curtis Yakima, Town Manager, Town Yucca Valley.
Hi, Glenn Harris, Field Representative for the 3rd District, San Bernardino County.
Good morning, Christina Benton, City of 29 Palms.
And Robin Schlosser, Executive Director for Reach Out Morongo Basin. And sir, if I could have you introduce yourself?
Yeah, Steve Barker, Morongo Basin Conservation Association.
Thank you so very much. Thank you, everyone, and welcome. Let's cool down, and we're gonna start with our individual committee member comments. And Curtis, we would like to start with you, please, sir.
Thank you, Co-Chair, appreciate that. Not too many updates from the County Yucca Valley. We do want to just highlight that we are hosting a fundraiser this Saturday for Unity Home. Very excited about that. They're doing great work. They're a partner of the Town of Yucca Valley in running a shelter for a number of folks in our community. So super grateful for their work and inviting everybody out to that. That's it for our comments from the town today.
Mr. Harris.
Good morning, everyone. There's a lot on our agenda today, but I do want to announce that we are having a community cleanup this Saturday, October 18th. It will be held at Sportsman's Park, right down the street, and it will be from 8 to noon. You can bring trash, bulky items, green waste, and vehicle tires. No concrete and no hazardous materials. And I will leave a bunch of flyers over on the table, so please utilize these services. It is for unincorporated residents only. So thank you for that. That's all I have.
Thank you. We will skip Mr. James and see if he, there he is. Just in time to give your update and introduce yourself.
Okay, great. So Stone James, I apologize. We had an issue, unfortunately, with Base. Unfortunately, they are having to withdraw from our Pioneers Day Parade, which is unfortunate since this was going to be a big celebration of their 250th birthday. And so, so in terms of an update,
That's due to the government shutdown.
it is.
That's why.
It is due to the government shutdown. Yeah. So they did everything they could in order to get an exemption, and they were not successful. So I was dealing with that here this morning. So in terms of an update, we are just launched a community. The council supported a community survey, and the purpose of that community survey is to gauge what services that the city proposes, or the city currently offers, are critical to the residents. We've got a situation like many cities in our region, and I would imagine in our state, where our revenues are flat or declining, and our revenues are increasing. And so this is going to be an opportunity for the community to tell the council and tell staff what services are mission critical, what services do they want more of, what services are they okay with getting rid of, if our revenues continue to stay flat or decline, and then our expenses continue to increase. And so, other than that, that's all that I have.
Thank you so very much. We don't have Miss April, Miss Akita, and Miss Janet.
Okay. So the Morongo Basin Housing Solutions team, which we call the working group affectionately, is going very well. We're averaging about 12 to 18 people that are attending. We had inroads there last meeting, and we had a great conversation. They are now connected with WIA, so we've got those guys connected, which is fantastic. We're working on a private Discord communication server so that providers can all be connected in real time to one central stream of information. And hopefully we're going to link this to a resource website that Eric's helping with, where each provider has control of a page to list and update programs and supplies, etc. The next meeting is Thursday, November 6th at the Joshua Tree Community Center, which is just down there, at 9:30 to 11. We're going to focus on the Discord server and the website, and also discuss more about what we need for our homeless services in the Basin, so we can have a good input for the home-based strategic planning meeting that's happening that same afternoon on Zoom. Inroads emphasized how important it is to get folks entered into HMIS, which is a Homeless Management Information System. The discussion just reinforced that we would benefit by having a workshop to discuss HMIS and the CES, which is Coordinated Entry System, and 211, and how we can better utilize these systems here in the Basin. I spoke with Javita of Office of Homeless Services, who is the HMIS expert. She's amazing. And she is more than willing to come up here, along with hopefully Aziza of Inland SoCal United Way 211 to lead this workshop. So I'll send an email out to the co-chairs to try and get that initiated. We also need to discuss at some point where to put the OHS kiosks that Marcus Dillard was mentioning. Also, I'm happy to say briefly that the state law, SB 634, that protects service providers from any laws that could have prosecuted them for handing out blankets or providing services to the unhoused out in the field has passed. So there's some protections there. Thanks.
Great, thank you so very much for that update. For myself, Reach Out Morongo Basin. Reach Out Morongo Basin, we are having a fundraiser this Friday night. We are having our Wild West Hoedown. Not to be confused with the Showdown, which and ours is in 29 Palms at the historic Tower Homestead in Wonder Valley. We have tickets for sale. It is one of our biggest fundraisers of the year. Live music, a nice barbecue dinner, some really awesome auction items, silent auction items. So if you're available, come on down. And that's about it. Other than that, we're staying very, very busy. I did want to give an update. Transportation, our biggest program. As of September, the end of September, we had over 11,000 trips for this year so far, and have driven close to 90,000 miles in 9 months, providing transportation services. So yeah, that's our biggest program, and we're very happy. And keep an eye on the newspaper. We had a tie-dye class for our seniors at the senior center. And they got to make tie-dye shirts, and we have a bunch of hippies now, so it was really fun. Thank you very much. Daniel, you're up.
Yep, so it's definitely entering into fundraiser event season. So Rescue Residence's annual Desert Jamboree is Veterans Day weekend. So that's Veterans Day weekend, Marine Corps birthday, and our Jamboree all. We invite a handful of basically well-done conversion vehicles out to camp out on the property. So we have our 5-acre ranch at 29 Palms. So we'll have several converted ambulances that are finalized ones that people show off on Instagram. They come and they hang out with us too to then see the concept in its final form, while we have ours that are in their conversion process up there on the ranch as well. So there'll be lots of music, raffles, auctions, games all weekend long. So it's a combination of food trucks, outdoor games, events, and some of the online options for games and things like that too. So you can bracket out and play some games online if you can't make it out to the event in person, and then still could potentially win some prizes. We just recently received 2 additional prizes from Tech for Troops. They're going to donate 2 gaming PCs that can be prizes for some of those games too. So
And
probably
when is that again?
when?
Yeah.
Veterans Day weekend, so all weekend long from 8th to the 11th is the primary stuff, and we'll basically close down the auction on the 12th, the day afterwards, and then hand everything out to everybody before they leave. So I have the flyer here. I only have this one copy, so it has a QR code on it to be able to get information and sign up. Auctions are available online, so there's some auction items as well. We did get a lot of work done on the road to improve the access to the property, so we got some of the donated equipment. We talked about being able to have some time out there. So they got that out there, and we're able to move that along. So
Where's the property at?
What's that?
Where in 29?
So it's near the Ocotillo Gate in 29 Palms, so it's not too far from there.
So all the way,
Yeah.
okay. Well, all the way to the gate, okay.
So it's not right off Morongo Road.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Appreciate everybody's input. Okay, for public comment, we do have a couple of people who have requested to speak. First will be Diana Anderson with the Healthcare District.
Hi. So we are working with Community Vital Signs to do a community listening event on November 13th at 11 o'clock at our houses around. So these are save the date. We're hosting the event, so it's a listening event related to the community transition plan, which has the 3 brackets of chronic disease, violent prevention, and behavioral health. And so it's basically kind of to gauge how we're doing on that plan. So I'll be sending out more information later with the QR code and a phone number and also an email address so you can RSVP. It is required to RSVP. I'm gonna send those down that way. Just so that we make sure that we have enough space for everybody and that kind of thing. So if you have any other questions, you can give me a holler. Thank you.
Okay, so the next public comment request was from Eric Menendez.
Hello, Eric Menendez, Joshua Tree Gateway Communities Alliance. I have just a couple of announcements. We are working, like Janet said, with this community-based website that will be able to kind of loop people in with each social service provider or whoever, even a community member, can create their own website and have information on the program services. We will also have it linked in for that way providers on the back end can link into the Discord channel, which Janet and Daniel are working on. I'd also want to acknowledge Councilmember Scott had a great working group with Janet in our discussion forum. Janet and I attended that on a couple weeks ago, and I can't remember the date, but I thought it was really great. 42 community members showed up, and it was a lot of community members who go out there and make meals, do stuff like that. So it kind of came as a natural tie-in for like a website where we have a centralized calendar. It is up for a test version right now. If anyone wants to look at it, it's www.mb, like Morongo Basin, Housing Solutions directoryup.com. That is just a temporary working group. We're working on a final name for it. We're trying to keep it short and easy to access. We had a great meeting with the software developer, so we're still working on a way to tie that in. And lastly, actually that's it for me. Thank you.
Okay, great, thank you so very much. So, our next item would be the consent calendar. We would like to go ahead and approve the minutes for the meeting on September 18th. Everybody have a chance to look them over? Do you have any corrections? Okay. can I have-
Motion to approve the minutes from last week?
From Daniel,
Second.
second from Stone. We can get a vote. We have Curtis,
Yes.
Glenn,
Yes.
Stone,
Yes.
Janet,
Yes.
Daniel? Yes. Robin, yes. So we have ties and we have 2 abstentions, please. Correct. Okay, the next thing we have is the presentations. Craig, you're up.
All right.
Thanks for joining us today, and we look forward to this.
Absolutely. I think I can take one and pass it down. And then I'll take one and pass it down. All right, so, for those that don't know about Morongo Basin Ambulance Association, we are a nonprofit ambulance association that's been operating within our region here since 1948. Our specific agency, we are only one of 2 nonprofit ambulance associations in the entire state of California. So we're lucky to be here and serve this community here to the best of our ability. We cover a very wide range of area, 2,700 square miles. The only area within the Morongo Basin that we do not cover are the inner city limits of Yucca Valley. So outside of that, everything else is what we cover. And so today I did want to speak a little bit on the homeless emergencies, or the emergencies met by the homeless population within our areas, and how that's kind of changed over the last 3 years or so. Okay. So as you can see, if everybody has the statistics here, over the last year we have seen a pretty major, substantial increase in the volume of medical emergencies within the last year. So the homeless population, I'm not sure on the census data as far as if the number of homeless population has gone up, but we have definitely had an increase in call volume to serve those community members. So that said, especially within the last couple months, it's been a much larger uptick than we've seen before in the past over the last 3 years. This is a little bit concerning to us as well, just because these community members, a lot of the times they're underserved as far as not having the best access to healthcare as far as getting their regular appointments met. So a lot of the emergencies that we're meeting, if you do notice on the second graph here, most of the uptick does seem to be medical determined, rather than an increase in trauma or substance abuse or even environmental factors. These have not really seen an increase. It's more so on the actual medical emergency side. And we do believe that a lot of this is just due to them not being able to make their primary care appointments and get that routine care that they have. I'm not entirely sure on what the best solution would be, but I do know that it is, we are seeing that increase in volume there for them. We do feel that it's very important to have them have the appropriate health care, because we don't want them to suffer these emergencies and not be able to have the correct routes to be able to take care of these emergencies, of course. And we also did see a little bit of an increase in the behavioral crisis. So the mental health care for this population is also a very big priority. And we're always going to do the best that we can to be able to serve these community members. But having these increases substantial to where they are now, we do have our concerns with their capabilities of making their medical appointments and getting their long-term care that they need. Again, I'm not sure what factors we have in place for them to be able to make those appointments, but either way, as far as right now, it looks like a lot of those cases are just due to them not being able to make those general health care appointments. Outside of that, Morongo Basin Ambulance Association is, we have been doing a great job with handling the call volume that we have had so far in the basin. The call volume has been steadily increasing over the years. But that said, it has not gotten to an unbearable standpoint at this time, and we're very happy to be able to serve the community in any way, shape, or form. Does anybody have any questions on the data points mentioned? Yes?
Yeah, I have a question about like do a lot of the calls that you run, do they have reimbursement tied to it? Like, are they enrolled in Medi-Cal or social service programs, or do you see a lot of like, what's your percentage of non-payer versus payer mix?
That's a beautiful question, actually. So with our breakdown in our community, with our rural area where it is, we have a very large number of low-income population here. And that said, outside of just specifically the homeless, but when we take into account all of our call volume, we have about a 70% low income. And so 70% of our revenue does come from Medi-Cal reimbursement, Medicaid type programs. And that said, those programs don't hardly pay anything to us as far as reimbursement goes, and it makes it very challenging for us to make our bottom line. But that said, for example, if we look at the actual way that we break down the billing, and our rates aren't set by us, but they're set by a regulating authority. And so, for example, say we had a $3,000 ambulance transport that we would bill out. Medi-Cal would only pay $300 of that, and everything else would be counted as a loss. So they do give us something, but when we take into account the fuel costs, the operating costs, the employee wage costs, the medical supplies, the liability and insurance that we do have to pay to keep our operation running, it does pose some significant challenges, especially when we deal with having as high of a low-income population as we do. And by no means are we complaining. We are happy to serve in any way that we can, but even as a nonprofit, we do have our struggles with getting that reimbursement from that population. So, yes, please.
Hi, thanks for being here, Craig. Could you talk a little bit more about the differentiation between medical and trauma and substance abuse? Because they're all different, but how does, like if someone is ODing, isn't that a medical issue as well?
Of course, and everything outside of the other category on this bar graph is a medical in some way, shape, or form. As far as medical in this particular section, it's categorized more so by, say, abdominal pain, chest pain, shortness of breath, whether they're metabolic conditions or other physiological conditions that are outside of the realm of the other four categories. The first four categories, those have been kind of a common occurrence with the homeless population. And as you can see, our environmental category has definitely had a significant downtrend. So, and those would be with the extreme heat or extreme cold, and however they're doing it, they are able to avoid those extreme temperatures, and that's a good thing to know, that they've been able to get around that a little bit. So that's huge. As far as the substance abuse, even that has gone down over the last couple of years, which is great, and that includes alcohol and or drug overdose of some kind. Now, don't get me wrong; these emergencies do still happen, but we're not seeing them with the same uptick that we're seeing with the chest pain, shortness of breath, those metabolic conditions that would be in the medical category specifically, and especially even with the traumatic injuries, we're not seeing this population, the homeless population that we're serving, as an increasingly violent type of population. This is a population that typically keeps to themselves. Granted, traumatic injuries do happen across the board throughout any population demographic, but that said, they're not bringing violence to our area. So if they are here, they're usually keeping to themselves, and they're not bringing that type of violence here. As far as what I can tell, of course, I don't have the law enforcement type data on this. This is more so just the data on the medical emergency specifically. So I don't have the law enforcement data that would back that, but from our perspective, it doesn't seem that they're bringing any kind of violence or anything to our area, so that's good too.
Thanks.
Absolutely.
Greg, so I'm taking a look at the medical, obviously that's a huge jump. I just used some base numbers and came up with maybe about a 92% increase. You recall, is that about right?
That seems fairly close.
Okay.
Yes. We've been looking at this. I didn't think it was that drastic a jump until I actually crunched the numbers on it, and that's a substantial increase on the medical side.
And,
so,
like you said, that's shortness of breath, chest pain,
metabolic conditions, abdominal pain, some things on that level that aren't traumatic, aren't related to substance abuse of any kind, aren't related to behavioral or environmental emergencies. These are specifically just the run-of-the-mill medical emergencies that we'll typically go on. And a lot of the times, these medical emergencies we see with our elderly population or things of that nature, you know, people that do have long-term health problems or concerns with their conditions there. But with the homeless population specifically, we have just seen a large increase in this number. And I'm not sure exactly, I couldn't attribute it to, I couldn't let you know anything specific on what would have caused that, but it is concerning nonetheless. So,
And then do you take a look at, last question, do you take a look at, you know, I know in other areas that I've been in where you've got the frequent flyers, right? And so you've just got a handful, but they are responsible for a substantial number of calls, right? And so do you have any sense, is this, you know, because if it's 100 people and each one plays one phone call, that's a problem, right? If it's 5 people and you know, they're responsible for that, it's a different type of problem. Do you have any insight into that?
As far as on the homeless population, we don't have many frequent flyers on the homeless side. There are still going to be some, whichever demographic that you go into. Some of our more dominant frequent flyers, as you would say, are not on the homeless population side. So I did look through the data, and I don't believe that this medical number is attributed to, say, frequent flyers, if that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, really, a couple of the acute, there was one municipality where it was just a couple of very acute, and so then ultimately the approach was, how do we address that individual versus something that's more systemic?
Absolutely.
So, you know, one's not bad or good, right? It's just different, and so ultimately, how do you solve the problem, and how do you find that problem? So thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
One more question, just to follow up on my previous set. Do you work with the hospital on this? Because we did include I've been trying to get them to come to the meetings. They have come to a few. I know they have a new case manager director. She couldn't be here today, but do you have any type of working relationship with them to reduce calls, or, you know, work with them as far as outreach, as far as what they're providing as far as unreimbursed care for homeless and how to?
We work great with the hospital up here. I will say that High Desert has come leaps and bounds in progressing to serve this community. We've been very happy as an ambulance company working with them. And that said, I'm not entirely sure. I couldn't speak on behalf of them, of course, on what they are or aren't doing specifically for the homeless population. But when we do bring them patients, whether they're homeless or any other, they do a phenomenal job of not only figuring out what the root cause is of that medical issue, but they also do dig into underlying causes that, you know, maybe caused by what they may be experiencing that may have led up to that particular circumstance for that patient. So I think in those numbers, they do a great job. I know that they have also looked into the possibility of helping with weaning patients off of narcotics abuse, so that helps them as well, especially long term. So it gets them off of the dependency of those. And that's not isolated specifically to homeless, but that is a great thing that they've been doing for the community as well. And I'm sure you could speak to that as well. Yeah. But that said, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it's the whole continuum of care thing. It's like we all play a part, and that's kind of why I'm curious about the hospital. I know they have committed to doing more. I mean, the personal conversations I've had with them, so I'm hoping that as we move forward with these groups, as we talk more, hopefully we can get a clearer picture of the scope of the problem.
Absolutely. Yes.
I'm just really curious how many overdoses you respond to, or if there's been an increase in overdoses that you responded to where Narcan was already administered by somebody.
That is a great point to bring up. I did not have that data specifically in front of me right now. From just off the top of my head, I feel that the last couple years we've seen a little bit of an improvement in the number of overdoses that we've had. They still do occur. They're gonna happen. But that said, back in 2021, 2022, we were seeing a lot of those, and they were very concerning for us. Over the last 2 years, I want to say that they've decreased, but I don't have that in front of me, so I can't give you specifics on that, unfortunately.
Thank you for coming out today, appreciate it. Just a couple of questions for you. How does MDA define homelessness for your calls?
So if they do not have a home to return to. So whether that's living on the street,
Do you have
in
calls-
between homes.
Do you have calls to somebody that's that may be homeless but is in a sheltered environment? Is that considered homeless or not?
No, I don't believe so.
And then, as a percentage of your total call volume, what is homeless calls?
That's a great question. Our total emergency call volume, we're running about 5,500 per year. As far as total emergency calls, I'd say per year for the homeless population, we're looking right around per year, hovering around that 100 mark. So it's not a major percentage, but it is a percentage nonetheless.
Great, thank you. And then the last question for you, in your calls throughout the basin, are they centralized in one geographical area of the basin or pretty evenly spread throughout?
It seems to be evenly spread throughout, as more so in the more populated areas. When we get to the outskirts, a lot of the time they're not really out there in the middle of nowhere. Say Wonder Valley or things like that. That's a long walk, in between to be getting anywhere out there. So we don't usually have homeless out in Johnson Valley or Wonder Valley or anything like that. It's usually between or in 29 Palms, Yucca Valley, Joshua Tree area. As far as what we've noticed, anyways.
Okay. And then lastly, does any of your call volume include calls that you may be covering for in Yucca Valley? Even though that's not your area, if you're there to cover for San Bernardino County?
Usually, so this data doesn't have anything with Yucca Valley specifics. This is more so due with Joshua Tree, 29 Palms, Morongo Valley, things of that nature. Maybe some of the outskirts of Yucca Valley, but not anything specifically in Yucca Valley.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Thanks for
Absolutely.
coming today.
Thank you.
Just a quick question, so have you noticed that the age has gone up of the people we're picking up? Because you said, the conditions tend to be more age related, so is the population getting older?
That's a great question too. I'm sorry, I don't have an answer for you on that. Without looking at it, I do feel that the population average has gone up a little bit as far as age goes, but I can't say definitively without that data. I do think that the age-related medical emergencies is definitely a big factor that we should be keeping in mind.
They're definitely, I was on a webinar and they said that like a 50-year-old homeless is basically equivalent to a 70-year-old house because there's so much hardship that they go through. So they're aging faster. And just another quick question, who's making the phone calls? Is it themselves or do you know who's actually making the phone call?
I think it's typically bystanders. Bystanders, whether the individual is asking for help or a lot of the times they'll hang out together, and so one of the other ones will go and get help and then call us over that way.
Thank you.
I just have a question, just following up on the distinctions between the different categories here. So when you're making a distinction between environmental, heat, cold, and say a metabolic thing that might be medical, is that judgment call being made like if they have shortness of breath on a 72-degree day, then that's medical. But if they have shortness of breath on a 100-degree day, does that then become environmental? How are you judging that?
So I favored if there was anything to do with environmental, I put it into the environmental category. That said, that's going to happen, absolutely. So some of the ones in environmental were also had a subdiagnosis of medical as well, as far as say chest pain or shortness of breath or something along those lines.
That's great. Leslie, just wanted to make sure I heard the numbers correctly. So it was, you had approximately 5,500 emergency calls for service last year?
Approximately each year, give or take, it hovers right around that range. Per year in total, we run about 7,000 calls annually, with 1,500, give or take, being hospital to hospital transfers.
Okay, real good. And then you said about 100 calls of that are homeless related, so I did the math, that's about 1.8%. That's about right?
That sounds about right, yes.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question for you. You were talking about the number of overdoses have decreased. Do Do you think that's because of the availability of Narcan now in the community more?
I'm not sure. I definitely think that that does help. I know that with the overdose calls that we have run, there's been more often times where that's been given prior to our arrival, and so the emergency isn't as critical when we do arrive as I feel that it would have been. Again, I could get more data on that as far as I know with the last question we had on overdoses. I could bring overdose specific data as well, including trends over the years relating specifically to the overdose call volume, including whether or not Narcan was given prior to our arrival, and then the outcome of those.
Okay, great, thank you. Do we have any other questions? Great, thank you very much. This has been extremely informative, and thank you for all of you, the work that you all do. Okay, so let's move on to our discussion items. First item on the discussion was for code of conduct for committee members. I personally would like to, because we are short 2 committee members, I would like to see about possibly tabling this till next month. I would like to also recommend that all committee members read this wonderful packet here that we have sent out. Yeah, of all the rules for the committee members, so that we can kind of familiarize ourselves with this, and then have a discussion when we have everyone here, because I think this is important enough that everybody should be in attendance when we have this.
I agree.
Do I have?
Second that motion.
Just a question.
Yes, sir.
I guess 2 things. One is, I guess this is the second time that the conversation's been deferred. So we'll continue to defer it until we have a full quorum, a full attendance, or is there gonna be dates certain, number one? Secondly, would be a request that we have, attendance from county OHS to help guide through some of the questions that may come out through the material.
Okay.
I think that'd be very helpful.
Then what we can do is see about, putting in a request to OHS to see if they can attend at our next meeting, and then send out to all board members or committee members that we are requesting that they be in attendance at this next meeting, to try to plan their schedules accordingly so that we can get this item taken care of.
One question.
Yes, sir?
On the future agenda items, there is, and it's been here a little bit, the Brown Act tutorial. As a suggestion, can we incorporate that into the same meeting so that it's really more of a lot of admin at once rather than spread it out?
That is a very good suggestion.
If possible.
I think that is a good suggestion also.
Good. Okay, so are we saying that we would like to table that and incorporate all of that for our next meeting in November?
So if we can find out if Ms. Deborah is available for that, right? So
yes.
So that's something we can do in the coming weeks, is to confirm all of the board members' availability for November, and then also see if Ms. Deborah is available to augment that discussion.
And OHS.
And maybe OHS would be able to handle that item as well, since that's part of their scope of ensuring that meeting protocol is followed.
And do we have a representative from OHS here today? Okay.
Does that sound good?
That does.
Okay, so can I get a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay. Curtis?
Yes.
Glenn?
Yes.
Stone?
Yes.
Janet?
Yes.
Daniel? Yes. Robin, yes. Thank you, and 2 abstentions. Next item, discussion of adding board member alternates. It was brought up that because we do not always have members available to attend because of other commitments, that they would like to be able to assign an alternate from their particular organization to attend these meetings on their behalf. So in checking with OHS, what we determined was that yes, we can have alternate individuals assigned, from these various agencies. Though there are a couple of rules. One, they cannot attend more than 2 meetings consecutively, at a time, because the voted member needs to be able to attend as often as possible. And 2, they will have voting rights when they are in attendance, so they have full voting authority. We're bringing that up for discussion. Does anybody have any questions, thoughts, concerns in regards to this?
I mean, I could just point out that the membership in the continuum of care and with the county participation has that already in place too. So you have to recommend, like you have to say, here's who our organization's member is, here's who our alternate is. So I know like one of my board members is my alternate for the county meetings and things like that too. So it's not unprecedented within the structure that we're working under that this already exists. So it makes sense for us to have something like that.
Couple of questions.
Yes, sir.
You said that the alternates cannot attend more than 2 or 3.
According to Claudia, she said 2 or 3 meetings. I would like to say that, I would recommend that our committee state that we do not have somebody attend more than 2 consecutive meetings. Because we would like the voted members to be as well informed as possible and be in attendance as much as possible. That is my suggestion.
No problem, I'm not trying to, sorry.
Oh, sorry. My second part to that question is, can the alternate attend meetings but not serving as the alternate?
Can an undesignated individual be an alternate? Is that what I'm hearing?
In other words, if someone is an alternate, they cannot serve as a board member for more than 2 meetings. But can they still attend other meetings just to be informed of what's going on?
I personally don't see why that would be a conflict, because there would be attending as a community member.
Yes. Okay, and then my last question is, you said that alternates from the same organization.
Would that, I mean, that is a suggestion on my part, because you would think that, say for instance, the town of Yucca Valley is they have their staff, because you're representing the town. Would you not want a staff member from the town of Yucca Valley to be your recommended alternate? Or would you select someone else? Or does anybody have any changes in that thought process? I mean, because you have one of your board members.
The appointment or the nomination and the confirmation of committee members is representing organizations. So it would have to be from the same organization. Is that your question?
Yes, I just wanted to clarify that.
So you're saying the alternate should come from that same organization?
Yes.
Yeah,
I
that
just
is what
wanted
I
to
was
confirm
stating.
that.
Yeah.
So building on Glenn's point, right, so yeah, right, the same organization, I think that would be important. And then
Yes.
one of the things you said was consecutive, right, and so theoretically, we could have a situation, I'm sure this wouldn't happen, but, you know, a board member, attends 6 meetings a year, and then the alternate attends 6 meetings a year, because they're not consecutive, right? So it's, Steve and then John, and Steve and then John, and Steve and John, and I don't know that's necessarily keeping with the spirit of an alternate, right? And so would we wanna put a cap on the number of meetings an alternate could attend in a year?
That is what we're here to discuss. What would you suggest to be a cap?
Well,
So thank you, if I can, just for bringing this up, Chair, and putting it on the agenda. It's at my request. For the town of Yucca Valley, sometimes it is helpful for us to be able to have somebody else step in and still have the ability to vote on items so as not to hold up agenda items, as we've seen earlier on our agenda today. One of the questions that I would have is that when we informally reached out to OHS on guidance for this, the response back was the specific rules and regulations and the bylaws aren't very clear on alternates for the steering committees. So here we're talking about, based on guidance from OHS, that we can move this forward, we can have alternates, but yet there's no clear guidance on it. And so I think as we have a discussion on bylaws, and as we have OHS representatives here, it'd be very helpful. So when we begin to establish our own rules of, for example, Claudia indicated from OHS perspective that no more than 2 or 3. I mean, is that written somewhere? Is that just something that OHS is arbitrarily coming up with? And then if we say that we want to stay in the spirit and not have maybe somebody 6 times as an alternate, it sounds like an internal, informal guidance or policy that we're developing. Is that consistent with OHS rules and regulations for what we want to do here as a steering committee? So I think there's some uncertainties. At the very base level, the idea of an alternate is very, very helpful, and I would recommend that we at least move that forward with the guidance that OHS has already given to us. But then it would be helpful for OHS to provide clear interpretation of how they see the rules related to this item.
Okay. Well, we can see about contacting Claudia and see if we can get something in writing per se. Cause what I'm looking at here, they have the committee and regional rules and procedures. And basically it's saying that you have the election of remaining 8 after the chairs and the secretary, you can have 18 voting regional delegates. So that could be why they're saying, well, you can have alternates, because we don't have anywhere near 18 delegates here. But we will reach out to her and see if we can get something that's more succinct in the direction.
Thank you, I appreciate that. With that, I'd make the motion that we approve the use of alternates with the informal guidance that OHS has already provided to us.
Second.
Okay, so we have, and let's move forward with the vote. So we have Curtis again,
Yes, ma'am.
Glenn,
Yes.
Stone,
Yes.
Janet,
Yes.
Daniel,
Yes.
and Robin, yes. And we have 2 abstentions. Now we get into the fun stuff. So we have an update on HAP 5 and the grant eligible funding that's going to be available and the potential uses that we can look at having RFAs sent out for. So Stone, do you wanna go on this some, or you have your notes? Yeah, I got them right here. Okay, so HAP 5, basically, we had a conversation with Stone and I the other day, with OHS, and for HAP 5, there is going to be $346,258 available for the East Desert region, when it comes up for RFAs. What they are looking at is we need to determine how we want this broken down and into what categories, because this committee needs to decide what we're gonna be seeking requests for proposals from different vendors. There are numerous categories for the committee members. You got back here, the work, scope of work was sent out. I hope everybody got a chance to read this. And it is on the different categories we have is either the delivery of permanent housing and innovative housing solutions. We have rapid rehousing. We have prevention and shelter diversion. We have operating subsidies in permanent housing. We have street outreach, and we have services coordination and systems support. Each of these categories has their own specific guidelines on how the funding can be spent. And we need to determine which of these categories we want to have potential vendors submit their proposal for.
And so what we can do is, so when, as a part of that phone call, that was a little bit intimidating, the fact that in the course of a meeting, and we really need to get this done this meeting, is how would we identify what amount of money that we would wanna allocate per bucket, right? And that would just be very difficult to do without a lot of discussion and debate and research. And given the fact that there's a tight timeline that the county is operating on this. And so what they did give us the ability to do, which I thought was very helpful, was that we can pick 2 or 3 of those categories. And if we have a marker, I can put it up on the board so that we've got it up where everyone can see it. And so, we can pick 2 or 3 of those categories, and then our recommendation can be that we can spend up to $346,258.08 on any one of those categories. So we could spend all $346,000 on one, or we could divide it evenly amongst 3, or all.
Or break it down into whatever we think is the proper amount.
If we felt strongly enough about how to allocate that.
Now, there's no way to get proposals in before we use,
No,
so
that-
we have to decide and then the
And then we can
proposals.
also decide, depending on the proposals, how much we're going to break it down to each, particular vendor, on the strength of what they're offering.
So
services.
what I thought was attainable in the course of this meeting was identifying, let's say, 3 of those, if you wanna, say those out again slowly.
Okay,
we
so,
can write them
here, let
down.
me go ahead and I'll give you a quick breakdown of them. Delivery and permanent housing and innovative solutions.
We've got, thank you, Mr. Menendez.
I pilfered them from the media room.
Okay. The eligible uses for delivery and permanent housing and innovative housing solutions is acquisition of land or buildings, improvement or renovation of land or building being used as permanent housing, maintenance of land or building being used as permanent housing, services for people in permanent housing programs, so long as the services are trauma-informed and practice harm reduction, to include intensive case management, assertive community treatment, critical time intervention services, tenancy support, evidence-based employment, coordinating mental health, substance use, and primary care treatment, and other evidence-based support services to increase housing retention. Rapid rehousing, we're gonna go, those uses should be categorized where the cost support operating a rapid rehousing type housing service. Tenant-based, time-limited permanent housing, inclusive of wraparound services. This includes the rental subsidies, landlord incentives such as security deposits, holding fees, funding for repairs and recruitment, and move-in expenses. Now, I think in the past, we have definitely had rapid rehousing as some of the services that we have had funding for. Let's see. Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, so the next one would be prevention and shelter diversion. Eligible uses should be categorized here when costs to support eligible populations, access to safe alternatives to shelter, and/or remain safely housed at their current residence. Example, homeless prevention through rental assistance, rapid rehousing and other programs, problem solving and diversion support programs that prevent people at risk of or recently experiencing homelessness from entering unsheltered or sheltered homelessness. Change of eligible populations to include at risk requires prioritization of households with incomes at, okay, so just more detail. So that's one, right? So we've got permanent housing, we've got rapid rehousing, we have prevention and shelter diversion, and we have operating subsidies, permanent housing. This is eligible usage should be categorized here when costs support operations in new and existing affordable or supportive housing units serving people experiencing homelessness. Operating subsidies may include operating reserves. Examples, operating costs for programs such as Home Key, operating costs for new or existing residential care facilities funded by behavioral health, property tax abatement for affordable ownership, subsidy support, ongoing operation and availability of permanent supportive housing. And then we've got another category. Good with me doing that? Where do you want to go?
Whatever, I'll go ahead and, street outreach. Eligible uses should be categorized here when cost support outreach program. Services for people experiencing unsheltered homelessness, including but not limited to persons experiencing homelessness living in encampment sites and being engaged in the Encampment Resolution Grant Program. Evidence-based street engagement services, intensive case management services, community treatment, housing navigation, harm reduction services, coordination with street-based healthcare services and hygiene services for unsheltered individuals and people living in encampments. The services coordination category is where costs support wraparound services not directly provided through another project. That is access to workforce, education, and training programs, to access legal advocacy services, individual counseling and service planning, helping coordinate medical and mental health appointments, making referrals to community-based services, and other services needed to promote housing stability. And then the final category is system support, and that is where it supports homeless system infrastructure, regional coordination, or improves accessibility, which regional data is collecting, doing assessments or regional needs assessments, collaboration on housing strategies and such. So I believe in the past, we have primarily gone for the three categories of rapid rehousing, prevention and shelter, and street outreach.
I am comfortable with those.
And I think those are kind of where we need to focus, continue our focus, because some of the other categories, I don't see our infrastructure being set up for some of these.
One counter argument is we've all talked about how limited the ability to access 211 or use HMIS
Yeah,
or
I
get
agree.
any support for the area through the county because we don't have those systems in place. So potentially some pushed into system support so that we now have
Okay.
support for where those kiosks go. Someone who mans that system and can actually be registered and certified in this area to put someone on HMIS is like if we do say, hey, we want
Okay.
someone to take this up as a charge, maybe that we can put some funds out as that. Let's put something in this category so that someone could maybe take that up and say, hey, we could support potentially doing service support with just a minimum amount of money.
Okay.
So that would be one I would push,
So
like,
then
or let's
I'm-
present this as an option too.
Thanks, Daniel. So I'm clear on the bigger picture here. So this is for HAP 5 funding?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Ultimately, the recommendations that we come up with today are provided to OHS
Yes.
that are then incorporated into an RFP
Right.
that will go out, and presumably many of our faith-based or nonprofit providers will then respond to
Mhm.
providing those services to
Yes.
our area.
Yes.
So, I guess it's a question, a comment. Have we received any input on this item from any of our nonprofit or non-governmental providers for this area in terms of things that they would like to see or areas that they would like to focus on?
Not that we have
Indirectly,
received. No.
right? Yeah,
Indirectly?
indirectly, in terms of some of the organizations that have presented at this committee previously that provide these types of street outreach services, whether it be primary care in a field setting, or maybe Reach Out Yucca, where he's, so, what's this? Yeah,
So have they provided that
They have.
input on this
on
proposal?
HAP 5, no, they have not.
Okay, so at the very least, I don't know what the timing is from OHS to you folks to do this, but at the very least, I think we should ensure that any of the groups that are here today that may want to provide public input for us as committee members to understand where their priorities are would be very helpful if we don't have the time and ability to return this, to ensure that providers have that time.
Unfortunately, when we spoke with Claudia, we don't have the time. We have to make the decisions.
So at the very least, I think it
Yeah.
would be appropriate to get public comment today from some of the providers, because
Right.
quite frankly, the town may or may not be an applicant, but hopefully our nonprofit providers will actually, be the ones that are, providing
Right,
proposals.
and what
for
we're
these
doing, what this is basically is structuring the RFAs so that, I mean, we could have a provider come in and say, hey, well, we're gonna provide this services for this service. We're asking them, these are the services that we want you to apply for. Are you qualified to do these? Tell us what you can do, how you can do this. And so that way they're not coming in and applying scattershot for a bunch of different programs. We're telling them, these are the particular programs we're looking for.
Yeah, this is, as I see it, Curtis, you bring out a good question. What I see it as, this is our opportunity to say, recognizing this is a little bit rushed, and that's just the system that OHS is operating under, recognize it's a little bit rushed. We, based on our collective expertise, would say, these are, let's say, the 2 or the 3 areas that we think we have the greatest need, right? Because unfortunately, this is not millions, this is, a cap of 346,000. So if we had 346,000, what are the three, let's say the 2 or 3 buckets that we would want to allocate some or all of that to those buckets?
Well, I get that, I understand that, I appreciate that. I guess from my perspective, at least representing the town of Yucca Valley, I'm not an expert on the delivery of services from the nonprofit perspective. And so from that perspective, it'd be very helpful to understand, are there certain areas of those categories that our nonprofit providers might want to provide input on for us as committee members that we may not otherwise know. So very similar to what Daniel just indicated, that system support was not on my radar, but he's provided input, and so I think that's very helpful for us to hear that type of input.
That makes sense.
Yes.
So I'd like to, on top of that, add one additional point for those who are hopefully gonna then chime in here in a second with some of this stuff, is not only what you could potentially provide, but think about who's not in this room right now and might need to come from somewhere outside of this region in order to provide that support, right? So we don't have someone resident here who does significant inputs into HMIS right now, right? And we need that, and so maybe someone has to come out and do the training for that. And it might mean the proposal comes from outside of the region, because it's gonna go to the whole county, but it's a gap that we can't fill up here potentially. Like, what's a thing that we're not doing? So let's be thinking about that too.
So I just
And
want to
lastly,
clarify, sorry.
I'm sorry, Janet, lastly is, did OHS provide us that we have to allocate specific funding into those categories, or only the categories that we're interested in?
That was the linchpin of the discussion, Curtis, and you bring in an excellent point, and that and it was essentially, we could say, so we pick the 2 or the 3 categories, and then we retain the right to allocate up to the maximum of 346,000 to any one or all across all 3. So we have complete flexibility based on the conversation. What I heard from that conversation was, our job here today, pick 3 buckets. 3 of the 5 buckets. What are those 3 of the 5 buckets that we believe would, if we were able to put money into, would best serve the needs of our valley? And then, so then we've identified those buckets, and then we retain the right to say we can put in $1 or 346,000 in any one of those. And then we would go out for the outreach, because maybe we have 3 buckets, but maybe we have no one responds to the RFP for the bucket number 2. So then we would just have 346,000 that we that we could allocate towards whatever RFP comes in the other 2 buckets. And so it is a little odd, but it's not as bad as I thought.
So the final determination of the distribution of these funds
Yes.
will be after we get the proposals,
Yes.
and then we
Yes.
decide from there.
Correct.
So we pick a general 3.
Yes.
We then get the.
Or we can pick them all.
Or we can pick them all. We accept our proposals, and then from there we can generate, our team can generate which ones we want to target specifically based on those applications.
Correct, yeah, that is correct. I didn't sense that they wanted us to come back with all. My sense was they wanted us to narrow it down to 2 or 3, but then we could retain that ability we retain the ability to spend the 346,000 in whatever manner we wanted in those 2 or 3 buckets, once those RFPs come through.
Yeah.
So then, respecting Curtis's request, are there any nonprofits in the room that would like to?
Okay, Valley Star is not a nonprofit, so I want to clarify that. However, I have hit many roadblocks with our clients, because they are not in HMIS. For example, one very recent example was a young woman was not able to receive a HAP grant application through the TAY cut aside, so DVH has HAP grant money that they can award to TAY youth. She was not able to receive that because she's not in HMIS, and I have no way to get her into HMIS right now. So that's just one example, but there have been other roadblocks for my clients.
We can put them in HMIS for you.
Sid. I mean, that's awesome. Thank you.
And you could probably put them in any DVH program that's you're collaborating with, because I believe, from my understanding, most DVH programs have that you have to be trained in clarity, and if they're working within your team, your program, because that's where, like she said, they gotta be in our program, they gotta be in Clarity to be eligible for those services. So, it's not a big, long process. I have forms right here, you guys can take a look at it, just for our program. It's a bit for an individual program. Me particularly, let's just say I'm putting them into a substance use program. I have to first put them into our inroads program, which is our program. It's just a demographic questionnaire, health, you know, where they're living, how long they've been homeless, if they're veterans, stuff like that. Then we have the clarity form. If you guys wanna take a look at it, it's the same thing you'll be looking at when you look into the clarity, go into clarity. It's just like a basic assessment with their information. We definitely have to have an ROI, a release of information for them to participate, because once they gotta give us, you know, the okay that we all can go ahead and look at their forms and say, hey, this, you know, they can look at my stuff and we're gonna participate in it. Other things, you know, you know, it's not as, it seems big, but it's not. It's just it's a basic program. If you have a program that you work at in your office or whatever, and you look up somebody's name and you have all their information right there, you see who's working with them, you can collaborate with them and all that kind of stuff, and see how we can work together to do that. So, but when we got trained on it, it was an online thing. We signed up, our supervisors just registered us. We are in there, and you just go right in there and you press search, look for the person, you say what program you're in, what services they're looking for. If they need an assessment, you leave notes. It's not that complicated. It's really not that complicated. So, but I think it's important, like we said.
One clarification there, though, you have to be providing services to the homeless to have access to clarity. If your program does not provide direct services, you cannot have access to clarity. That's how OHS has it set up. So for anybody who's providing any services to the homeless can ask OHS to get them set up on clarity. So if you have somebody in your office, normally you don't provide, but you have somebody specializing in working with the homeless, you can get that person set up. So that's really the only big thing, is you have to be providing homeless services somehow through your agency to have access. That's other than that, it's basically, like you said, it's pretty simple stuff once you're qualified and they get you set up on it.
Hey, Chair James?
Sure.
Thank you for that ability for the folks to comment. Maybe there might be some more comments, but in the spirit of moving some of these decision points on, I would be comfortable recommending that we remove categories 1, delivery of permanent housing solution and innovative housing solutions, as well as operating subsidies for permanent housing. So, as a starting point, those seem to be relatively specific to permanent housing, and given the amount of funding and the relative scale of costs associated with permanent housing, doesn't seem to make sense. So that would be my recommendation, to remove those two, and then we can continue the discussion.
I would agree with that. I would second that if we are. But yes, I agree. I think that it makes sense for us to maybe focus on, let's see here, rapid rehousing, prevention and shelter diversion, right? Keep them in their, you know, if they are in a home, if they're housed, keep them there, right? So shelter diversion. And then we've got street outreach. That certainly seems like a need. You know, Mr. Bell took some explanations today. Then we've got service coordination, and then we've got system support. Okay, so, all right, so then if we take a look at that, if our goal is 3 areas, we've got 5 now remaining: rapid rehousing, shelter diversion, street outreach, service coordination, and system support. So now I suppose it makes sense to really kind of talk about, do we wanna go for the low-hanging fruit, and do we collectively believe that street outreach and shelter diversion are the most appropriate? And that we've just filled up 2 spots, and then we can talk about system support and service coordination.
Can I say one thing?
Yes, ma'am.
The service coordination to me is, making people more self-reliant and getting them out of this continuum of care and things like that. So wouldn't that be, I mean, you could do the rapid rehousing, but to me, that seems like we wanna work with individuals and get them out of that system.
Good call. Right.
I think that's
the whole point.
very true. I agree.
Yes, sir.
Yes, one of the things we would, because we are an outreach team, one of the challenges we have for the continuum of care, ongoing care is, if they need their documents, they need their IDs, they need their medical insurance, they need their benefits, whether it's EBT, and other stuff. In order for them to obtain housing, because, what housing are we talking about? Just a shelter bed with no medical staff, no clinical staff, they do have mental health. Are they in need of medications? Are they schizophrenia? Are they, whatever the situation is, are they amputees? And a lot of the homeless people we go out there we meet, they don't have these documents. They haven't seen the doctor in years, and trying to, just get them to a place where they're, from a pre-contemplation stage to a contemplation stage where they start realizing, I know there's a problem, what do we do? And they get to start making steps. There's quite a bit that goes into it to get them into a housing situation and be able to let them stay there, and maintain that. So, it's just a suggestion that, focusing on these immediate needs, their IDs, their Medi-Cal, there's things like that, will assist them when we do get them housed.
Would that, sir, thank you for that, really, because it sounds like they're not serviceable right now, right?
That's why service coordination is so important. Our biggest issue is if we have housing ready for somebody, it can disappear in days. They don't have an ID, they don't have a social security card, they don't have nothing.
They're not stable on
They're
meds
never
or
gonna
anything
get
like
in.
that.
So if we can get services, a lot of people don't understand that term like she brought up. It's more important than you realize, because you can have somebody on the hook, oh, I got this place. They don't have nothing.
Okay, so it sounds like then service coordination should be one of the 3 that we select.
From our point as a street outreach team, that is one of our biggest barriers, is getting that taken care of.
So,
we wanted to give you that feedback, because I think it's
so are you good?
not fully
Do we
understood.
wanna maybe take a vote and vote one at a time at this, right?
Well, I'd like to bring something up, because we could feasibly, if we chose to, select all 5 categories. We don't have to have specifically 3 that we're selecting. We can say, these are the 5 categories that we would like proposals on, and see who applies for them.
And then,
And
it gives
what
the
kind
most-
of-
it
what
gives
kind
most
of-
flexibility for the providers.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have to, I know that they said try to keep it manageable, but considering too where we're at, we wanna, I think it's feasible to open it up a little bit more and have these 5 categories, because we might get one provider that says, well, okay, I wanna try these 2. Another one may say, oh, I wanna try these 2. And we'll play to their strengths.
I agree with that to the degree that there is some crossover between the categories as listed. So, because potentially prevention and service coordination, they're, splitting hairs, there may be some similarities. So I think to open it up to all those areas and then see where the applications come in might behoove us.
Do we want to have kind of a belt and suspenders approach? So certainly understand what you've said on the 5. So then maybe take a vote and say we want to advance these 5. And then as a backup plan, we identified 3. So that when we have that conversation with them this week and they say, whoa, we told you 2 to 3, not 5, then we can say, well, okay, if that's the case, then here's our 3. Are you
Yeah.
comfortable with that?
Are there not specific guidelines in HAP 5 that identify how many we can choose?
On the call, they told us, well, I recall on that call, I wrote down select 2 to 3. That's what I wrote down, but if you're comfortable and you think we're good with 5, then.
Well, because I remember one of the examples that they gave to us was that we could split it up into all the categories and say, okay, we're gonna give 42 to this, and you could give dollar amounts to each particular category, or you could pick certain categories and say, this is what, and leave the dollar amount open.
I mean, just historically, what we've seen in this area is fewer applications than more. We don't have that many providers that are in our area that are actively proposing to use funds for HAP. I think our last one, we had 3, one of them dropped out, we left with 2. The other one on HAP 4 declined the funds, so we're back to where we have unallocated funds. I think the more flexibility you provide to vendors, likely maybe we get additional proposals that can benefit our area.
I mean, and I concede to you too, I mean, you may have caught something in that conversation, because we had a lot of information coming at us from multiple different people.
Yeah.
And you may have heard something that I didn't, so let's go ahead and say, okay, these are the 5, and then, but also have 3 backups that we say, this is what we wanna fall on here.
Just understanding how the RFP and proposal process works sort of too, is like they can't actually tell us we can't put all 7 in, because it's what HUD is saying. These are the categories that proposals can fall into. Anybody could, even if we said we only wanna do these 3, if someone submitted the other, we would have to, as a grant review committee, we would have to review the application and say, hey, these are not the priority we set for this region, but this application makes sense. So really what we're doing is we're saying these are our priority categories for this region, because we know what the gaps are, we would like to see these proposals. There's no way we could say, you're not allowed to submit a proposal that HUD has said we're allowed to receive, so. They can't do that.
So if you pick all 5, and say, and you give a certain amount to someone, and they decline it, can it go into another one of the other categories?
Well, that was part of the painful, I think, lesson last time, where, we had 3 and then 1 backed out. And then, wasn't there an issue with the second one? And so then all of the funds by default went to the one organization?
And then they decided they didn't want all of it, and so then we had to open it up again, which they will be, for this month, it will be going before the CLC to reopen the RFA for the half.
And conceivably, if they said, no, we want it all, but we as a region may not have believed that they needed that much money for that one aspect of it, right? So thankfully, they said, no, we don't want it, right? Because I don't know that as a region, we would have been able to utilize all of that. So.
Well, the question I have is whether they can apply money towards a physical building. So if like one agency wants to buy a building, and is gonna run operations out of it, can the funds go to a physical space? Cause then all of a sudden that chunk of change will disappear fast into one structure.
Well, that could be, but that's for.
I think the first category was the
Yeah,
only one
that
that
was-
permanent housing and innovative, so it's like, you could purchase a building and convert it to other things, that's the only one that mentions.
For acquisition of land and building,
Yeah.
but we're not.
One thing, maybe we leave it open to the 7, so we have that flexibility, cause we need time to look at the options, and really it's gonna be the agencies that come through, that are gonna, be able to see something through like that.
Given the limited funding, I would suggest that we still leave off the original recommendation, we just strike those 2 categories, leave at least 5.
Yeah.
And I'm open to, if the chairs believe that it's appropriate to have a limit of 3, based on what you've heard from OHS, to having a backup plan.
Okay.
I don't care, we can do that as
So-
well, but ideally, the more flexibility our providers have, the better.
So if we have to go down to 3, which ones are the ones we want?
So it sounds like service coordination would be 1
Right.
of the 3, right? So we've got the 5.
I will say, like, we do actually have a few organizations that are doing some of this.
Yeah.
It's not a gap as much as some of the others. We have some
Correct.
outreach teams, we
Yeah.
have some support for this, so it could be one of the lower 2.
Yeah, that's fair.
It sucks to not continue to fund it, but it is already happening.
Being
I
funded.
think we need more money towards that though, so I wouldn't. put
More
it
would, more would be
in there.
great, but if we had to start saying, what's something that's totally missing, there are some things we don't have at all. There is no support to get them directly into the systems out here. We're leaning on county programs to get the system support stuff done, so it's working.
So would you mind putting a line through operating systems and a line
Yep.
through permanent housing?
I'll write over here. Yeah, write those down. So the three would be rapid rehousing, prevention, shelter, and service coordination?
That'd be reasonable.
Definitely
That's-
said, we're here pretty solid with this one, right? And then we said rapid housing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then prevention and shelter version?
If we had to,
can't put in all
if we have,
five.
if we
Yeah,
can't
if-
put
yeah,
in all
if
five, I
we'll put
would
in
say
all
those
five,
three,
and if
prevention,
they push us
shelter.
back.
So it'd be service coordination.
Yeah, I think we need
rehousing,
to-
and prevention, shelter.
Let's hear what everyone has
There's
to say.
no system support to get them into the system, what's the point in giving them the service
Okay,
coordination?
so then we,
prevention?
rather than
Because-
service coordination, you
Yeah,
would want
because we
system?
need to get them into the HMIS.
Okay, we're saying if we have to go down to three categories, what would you do? Would you get rid of prevention and shelter or rapid
So
rehousing?
I think similar to outreach, this is a thing that sort of does happen. We have several programs in the region that help people with rent and help people with electric bills and do some of the other prevention stuff. So there is some capacity for this already where there is.
Where those organizations?
They're all short of money right now, so.
If you get grant
Primarily.
funded, if you get this
So,
funded, you
it hasn't been
can
funded recently.
provide
They don't have any funding.
Right.
Yeah, so.
operating
They're
support.
not doing well.
You have to spend this money or to get the money, you have to sign up for the HMIS.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, and then the service coordination,
Signing up for it doesn't allow you to operate it though. Like if you have no one who's being paid to do that and you're saying you're gonna need someone to do it, you need funds to be able to pay somebody to do HMIS, then. And you're
you can
agreeing to,
use your
you're agreeing to do
funding
HMIS to pull in your
out of
dues.
your housing. Okay, that you write that into your grant. Okay, if you're doing rapid rehousing, you're providing service coordination, and you're providing service support. You have to. Okay, so there's, if you're doing prevention, you have to provide that stuff as well. So your biggest needs out here, number one is prevention, quit making homeless people and keeping the people in housing that's in there. Rapid rehousing fluctuates on the housing market. Okay, so you're gonna take a look at that once you get that funding. Is it gonna come out in 6 months, 2 years, 3 years? You know, what's that situation there? And then the street outreach is the big thing.
Is what was that, Wayne? Street outreach is what?
It's a big service that's needed out here.
Yeah, we need it, okay.
So if you're gonna pick three, I would say rapid rehousing. Prevention is number one, street outreach number two, rapid rehousing is number three.
And what about service coordination?
You have to provide that. You can't
Excellent.
provide rapid rehousing if you're not coordinating services.
But why not have the category and then there's a specific amount there and there's no confusion during the whole accounting, so.
You know, it's just like when we
There's
wrote
no
that
skin off our
grant,
nose to have a
we put in
category.
there operating subsidies that
No,
we
it's just-
have, we wrote in the grant for the money to spend it on the rapid rehousing and prevention.
I'm comfortable with the way that, we've identified that with with the caveat that the priority recommendation is for all five of those categories. If we're limited programmatically, then we would identify. the three.
So we add.
So it would be, so if we're limited programmatically, it would be rapid rehousing, prevention and shelter and street outreach?
Correct. Do we need a vote on that?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, we do.
Like, say it
So
like-
then I make a motion to advance to Office of Homeless Services, 5 categories. Those 5 categories are prevention, shelter diversion, street outreach, rapid rehousing, service coordination, and support systems. And if OHS says that you are limited to 3, then we would submit prevention and shelter diversion, street outreach, and rapid rehousing.
I second that.
So we make the motion, okay, so we have a Motion and a second.
And we've got additional board members.
I just,
stepped in.
I would like, is everyone kind of comfortable with that? We didn't get that last feedback from y'all. Does that sound like a good plan?
I agree with what he said, I'm not voting, but what he said, the outreach, the street outreach, they should be able to provide those service coordination, things. The difficult part for some is being able to maintain contact with client, so you might have to collaborate with other outreach teams. It's just one of those things to make sure that we're getting all this stuff done.
So it's helpful to have that
lost.
bucket there if we need that extra funding, so.
The outreach teams, we do provide a limited amount of it.
So I think
to what Wayne is
so we
saying.
advocate for all 5 categories.
Well, I think what Wayne is saying, so like if I'm putting a proposal in, your primary thing is on prevention, right? You're going to say like, I'm going to be required by the county to submit these information in HMIS, which means I need some funds, whatever that is, for system support to do that. And so you're allocating funds internal to your bigger budget for that. We don't have to allocate this because no one should be doing this pretty much on their own, and that's the only thing that we're doing in a whole proposal. So as long as we make sure that if we do get it back, we have to go to 3. If I'm at all involved in helping to shape that conversation, how they publish the RFP up in the county, then we can make sure that that's included. Hey, you're allowed to put others in, but it's as sub-bullets.
And then to respect Ms. Susie's point, the fact that our goal is not just to keep them, warm and well fed, living out in the desert, but how do we get them off of the streets and the wraparound services that they need to become functional members of society. So I suppose if that if we can ensure that continues to be a North Star of this group. So, and then Robin, Ms. April was here, so.
We need to take a vote on
Oh,
that? I heard a motion in a second.
Yeah,
Yes.
yep, motion in a second, so.
Okay, so let's go ahead and start with the votes. We will start with, since Miss April, your thing's down there, you're up first.
Aye.
Okay, Curtis.
Yes.
Glenn.
Yes.
Stone.
Yes.
Daniel.
Yes.
Janet.
I think with the
Yes,
caveats.
as long as we're doing
And Robin, yes. So we have 1 abstention now. Thank you, everyone, and we will go ahead and submit this recommendation to OHS. So now our future agenda items. We have a presentation by Inroads. We will be setting you up
You didn't even know about that.
for hopefully within the next, I think we have a committee next month, so possibly December. We would like to see about possibly have that.
So Robin, can I just clarify about the HAP 4 recommendation for the COC board? What was the official word? Is that for sure?
No, because it's not on the it's not on the.
Okay, well, we haven't had any announcement. It's the vote's coming on the 29th.
Yeah, we can't just, it's not on the.
Okay,
We'll
so
pass public
that's
comments.
one thing I do want to ask about for future agenda items, is having a space in there for
If for a
discussion.
future agenda item, yes.
Yeah,
To
but in general, like, we need a spot in there to address
Okay,
address stuff
we
like
will
that.
put that on.
So
for
that's
a
gonna
future
happen
agenda item.
on the 29th, that vote, so that's.
Chair,
right after.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
Can I add a future agenda item?
Yes, ma'am, what would you like to add?
I just came back from the Cal Cities League of Cities, conference this past month. And I would like to add that we, at bare minimum, have a discussion about the laws, Prop 36, and the other implementations that Governor Newsom has implemented in order for regions, cities, states, and counties to be able to continue to receive state funds for housing and homeless services.
Okay.
Was the header title for that one?
Yeah.
Discuss laws and provisions
Okay,
that are being implemented at a state and federal level
okay,
as a requirement for funding.
okay. Next month we have Reach Out Yucca Valley, they will be here presenting on the MED program. And then as we discussed earlier, we will have the Brown Act tutorial, we will see about coordinating that for next month. Yes, sir.
Chair, just if it's appropriate, I'd like to bring up the point in time count.
Thank you,
for-
I was gonna ask you
Yeah,
about
great,
that.
thank you. So that is scheduled this year for January 22nd, 2026, Thursday, January 22nd, 2026, the point in time count. There's a couple of questions for this group. The first is, do we want to have, as we did last year, in-person training for the count on Thursday, January 15th? That would take the place of our monthly meeting for the month of January.
Yes.
Secondly, the start time of the point in time count. We've done it over the years as early as 6, as late as last year, I think, or the year before was it, I think 8 we did it. There's pros and cons from both, so it's up to the group what time you all want to start.
So just to confirm, you said January 26th, that's a Monday?
Thursday, should be a Thursday.
The 15th is the training.
Yeah, because I have, if I have on my calendar.
22nd, not 26.
Yeah, 22nd.
22nd,
Yeah.
okay. 22nd, that is a Thursday.
Can we bring this up at the next meeting for vote, or do we have to decide now?
I think in terms of the time, we would like to know now.
Yeah.
I think 7 is good.
Okay.
I'm good with 7.
7's good.
I have a question about who determines the areas that we cover. Because last year I did 2 maps and they were not areas that anyone would have been in. They were nice areas, although they were in the desert, all dirt roads, nobody would ever be out there.
Why don't we have that as a agenda item on our next meeting in November, and we can ensure that we have preliminary maps as well as input from OHS. And then at that time, we can also verify where the deployment centers are gonna be, whether it's gonna be the same, the one at the governmental center in Joshua Tree, and then I believe 29 had one in town as well. So if that's still the same, I need to confirm that.
Anything else?
Just, you had said we're looking at coordinating the Brown Act discussion next meeting as well as the code of conduct, correct?
Yeah, we definitely already voted to
Yes.
try to coordinate all of that together
Thank you.
and have OHS in the
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
I
Okay.
will second that with thanks to our chairs. for
Thank
letting
you,
me bring
everybody.
you-
Yes.
We appreciate y'all coming out today.